The mission of the Bowling Green Parks and Recreation Special Population Division is to serve the unique needs of citizens with physical and intellectual disabilities. The Special Populations Division began through the start of Special Olympics participation in the 1980s. While Special Olympics is a primary activity provided to the Bowling Green community, it is just one of many ways to get involved. From adaptive sports to Camp Happy Days, there are many ways to benefit from the inclusivity with Parks and Recreation. In today's Spotlight on Bowling Green, we will learn more about the long-standing programs offered and how they bring our community closer together.
My role with the City of Bowling Green and with Parks and Recreation is essentially to help provide programs and services to individuals with physical or intellectual disabilities. That day-to-day operation looks like a lot. You know, we've got a lot going on throughout the entire year. So some of the main things that we do are our Special Olympics program, of course, and that has a long-standing history here in Bowling Green and in our community. Something new over the last 5 years that we've been able to implement is our adaptive sports program. So the difference between those two things is our Special Olympics program is going to be more so for individuals that have intellectual disabilities, and then our adaptive sports program is going to be more for individuals that have physical disabilities. Within those two programs, the goal is to give a person that has a physical or intellectual disability the opportunity to enjoy and pursue recreation and sport. The field of Parks and Recreation as a whole is on a daily mission to enhance quality of life. For me, in my job, we've found a way to pursue and identify many different grant opportunities to make those programs possible. To date, specifically for our adaptive sports program, we've received close to $91,000, both indirectly and directly, for starting that program. I love getting to not only receive that funding, because obviously it makes that programming possible, but at the end of the day, what it does is it creates partnerships. My love for Parks and Recreation in this field and also specifically individuals with disabilities really goes back, it's a family thing for me. You know, I'm a third generation Parks and Recreation professional, starting with my grandpa. He was a professor at WKU in the Recreation Administration program for 36 years. Also was a parks director before becoming a professor in the state of North Carolina. It really starts with him, and then my mom, I guess, caught the bug from him and wanted to pursue Parks and Recreation. So she decided to go into the field, attended Western, and while she was at Western, actually helped to start the program that I now get to work in here with Bowling Green Parks and Rec, what is now our Special Pops division. It started as the Bowling Green Adult Athletic Club.
We've had a lot.
Look, when I first met her husband and her, we was up there in Eastern Kentucky. Yeah. And everywhere we needed to go, like if I wanted to go somewhere and I'm like, well, can we go? Can I go here? Or me and another friend, can we go here? Long as we know where you at. And I liked that little free lane right there. At first I was like kind of peculiar, you know, meeting other people and meeting her and her husband and grandma and grandpa, and that's how I got to know them and everything.
My father was a professor at Western in Parks and Recreation, and so we started working with Special Olympics when I was 9 years old. The lady who ran the area Special Olympics was actually a professor with my father. So it's always hard, you know, when you start a new program and you've got a group of athletes that are meeting new people for the first time. The main reason that the club was started, though, was Special Olympics was there for people in the school system, and it was a natural, that it was part of your school day, or it was right after school. So what happened when you got out of school? This was way before the Americans with Disabilities Act, to where there was things that was put into place that went until 1990. And so we recognized that a lot of these guys didn't have a group to compete in Special Olympics or to train or to socialize. And that's why we started the club.
I've been in Special Olympics from Parker Bennett on up into high school, and then from there till I got grown.
And we started when I was in college, which was in the 80s. I know when I come back and see that Evans is still participating and is still an athlete, it's so exciting to see that. socialization, the friendships. As you can see, 40 years later, we're still friends. And that's what's so cool. The friendships is so important. We would travel to state competitions, to different area competitions. And then athletes also have the opportunity to compete internationally with other states. So it's unlimited.
I was meeting people in other countries and other states and here and different old stuff. Yeah.
When we went, we stayed in dorms. And
yeah.
you know what? We loved it. But that was just part of it. You were with your friends, you were having a good time.
So since I've been in it and everything, I done been to North Carolina softball. I done been to Seattle football. It's fun. What I like about it too, we had a police escort in the Bowling Green. I don't forget where we was coming from, but we got a surprise, and that's, you know, and I ain't never been through that, and I'm like, it was fun. I had a nice time.
You know, we live in a society to where we look at the differences of people, and we're all the same. Bring your kids early so that they grow up not seeing a difference in a person. I remember my son, Miss B, that we talked about.
Right.
She had spina bifida. And I remember my son was like 9 years old, maybe 10, when she passed away. We were headed to her funeral. And I made the comment to my father saying, you know, Miss B is in heaven now and has no issues physically. Isn't that amazing? And my son looked at me and said, Miss B had a physical disability. So the younger you bring your kids out and expose them to people and introduce them to different things, we see people for people, and that's what we need to be doing, because that's what Special Olympics and adaptive sports is all about.
You know, I started coming to the realization that the friendships and the relationships that were natural for me to pursue with people with disabilities, I realized that was not most of the time the case. For a lot of people, for many in our societies, it's uncomfortable. As I got older, I kind of started catching the itch. You know, I really want other people to experience the same thing that I have, and that is honestly just a genuine love and a genuine joy for others and for life that you get from people with disabilities. And so if I was impacted by that, I knew that other people could be.
There's so much, it's like a huge family. There's so much love and support around it. And honestly, like once you become a part of it, it's like, it's every day they'll ask you how you're doing. They'll ask you things about your life, and you'll do the same back. And it's just, you can feel the love in the entire community with it.
The implementation of the Special Populations Program, you know, over 40 years ago was really an intentional decision. What they did was they made an intentional decision to say, hey, we're going to focus on people with disabilities because we know that they will be impacted by the services and the programs that we can provide, but we also know that they'll impact us and they'll impact our community. And I think ultimately, in a general sense, what Parks and Recreation does and what sports do is really provide an opportunity for everybody to come together. You know, Madison first came to us as an adaptive athlete. She plays wheelchair basketball, plays wheelchair tennis, does all those things with us. And what's neat about Madison is coming to us as an adaptive athlete, she really kind of grew that desire to then provide these same opportunities to individuals, you know, who, you know, are in the same situation as her. And that led us to, you know, really consider hiring her on. As we were growing our adaptive sports program, you know, in my mind, there was nobody better to talk to a new participant that we may get than Maddie herself. She started working for us probably about 3 years ago. And one story that I'll share that's kind of cool is there was a day that we were coming back from Greenwood High School. We had been there all day doing wheelchair basketball, which is where Maddie graduated from. And what was really neat is there was a young boy that was in the gym. His sibling was having a basketball practice. And so he was just kind of off on his own playing, walking the track, whatever it may be. And he walked right up to the back door and he said, "What are you all doing?" I was just very curious, just like kids are all the time. And so we both, myself and Maddie, kind of looked at him and we were like, well, we just, you know, did wheelchair basketball all day at Greenwood High School. And he looked at Maddie and he said, "You can play basketball?" And it was just that curiosity question, you know, that sparked not just a conversation, but honestly a relationship, a friendship between this young boy and Maddie where he walked away learning more than most adults in our community know about people with disabilities, about acceptance. He's learning those things at a young age that are going to completely change his perspective on people with disabilities and those interactions. And he's going to then be able to teach others the same thing, even if it's adults around him or kids around him, his peers. That interaction would have never happened had we not hired Maddie. If we would have not hired her on as an employee with our program, that interaction and that learning experience for that young boy would have never been facilitated.
I've been working with Bowling Green Parks and Rec for, I think, coming up on 2 years. So it started by Cameron asking me to come play wheelchair basketball with him. He was helping me. I did track in high school, and he was like, "Hey, you should come and play wheelchair basketball." And I said, "No, I couldn't play basketball before I got sick. You probably don't want me to play." And he was like, "No, I think you should." And so through that, I slowly started to volunteer, and then I just fell in love with it. So I became paralyzed from the waist down at the end of my 8th grade year. So I think I was 13, just turned 14 in the hospital. What happened was I woke up one morning fine. I came downstairs, and then within an hour and a half, I was paralyzed from the waist down. They found a really small lesion on my spine, on my spinal cord through an MRI, and I got diagnosed. It was a 50-50 with transverse myelitis and a spinal stroke. So with BGPR, I do wheelchair basketball and wheelchair tennis, and those are our 2 main sports. But we also have done racquetball, which I have liked. But my favorite sport we have done so far has been sled hockey. And it was on the ice rink that was set up underneath the Soki Pavilion. And so we had the sled preds come out one night, and they just kind of showed us around. And I wasn't going to get in a sled because I just wasn't sure. But one of the guys kind of was like, "Oh yeah, you have to do it. Get in this sled." And I did it, and I loved it. It was so fun. It's basically like a little sled that has 2 blades on it, or 2 blades that are like this on the front and the back, and you use picks, and you go around and then you hit. Say that, our door's always open, where we love to have people of all abilities, kids. We love to have anybody come and try it at least once. I think if you try it once, you kind of see a different mindset and a different way that sports can go. I always like to say that when we go to the schools, that for a brief moment, all of those students are kind of in my world, rather than having to be in other people's world, because the world's not that accessible. We're bringing the accessibility to them, so there's really no excuse for them not to try it, and they end up really liking it.
Colt is one of our adaptive athletes. Colt is somebody who started doing tennis with us in the fall for the first time. And one thing that was really neat about Colt is obviously when he first came to us, had never done tennis before. By the end of the program, he was able to hit the ball over the net. And those are those small victories, that we take and we keep them in the back of our mind because it's what motivates us. That enjoyment and that success to do something that maybe he hadn't done before, that's why we do what we do. And that's ultimately why we wake up every day, is to provide those opportunities. Colt's really just an awesome kid that we're really fortunate to have in our program. And then his family's obviously incredible too, his parents. And that's another part of our program that is so critical, is that parental support. When we're able to get parents in our program that support what we're doing, not only because it impacts their child, but because they know it impacts other kids too. Again, it's a team effort. It's everybody coming together to make sure these opportunities are going to be available and affluent to every person in our community.
Our son Colt is 5 years old. He was born at 29 weeks premature. Due to that, he has now been diagnosed with cerebral palsy. So he uses a wheelchair for long distances, and he uses a walker for short distances and therapy purposes, but predominantly in a wheelchair.
Cerebral palsy is actually kind of a
overhead diagnosis. It actually encompasses a lot of different ranges of variation, and there are different levels of cerebral palsy. Colt has what is called spasticity. It affects the brain, so it affects body movement because of the brain. So a lot of people, sometimes will see people in wheelchairs and think something wrong with their, with their legs or things like that. Honest questions, and there's nothing wrong with his legs or anything with his body. It all stems from his brain.
We basically would just facilitate Colt playing basketball or at this time tennis, put balls on tees, try to help the other kids hold down the net, help them get it over, that sort of thing. Just pretty much, if Cam needs us to help do something like that, then we'll do whatever we have to do.
Mr. Cam has taught me one swing, and that's a backhand swing where you got the top of your hand facing out, and then a forehand swing where you got the palm of your hand facing out.
And then it's always fun just to be the cheerleader too, like when they're taking turns and their other friends, they love to encourage one another and playing with everybody who comes out to play. The sports and things have definitely allowed him to continue to be active outside of like your normal routine things he has to do. This actually ends up being something that's fun and you want to do. So sometimes this actually takes the place of routine things that you have to do at home to keep their body strong and healthy.
He's getting therapy and stuff in, and he doesn't really even know he's doing it because he's having fun doing it, and it's just, it's just like any other kid.
Like that's what's nice about the Up Down is you have everybody participating. Show everybody how to be an inclusive and how to ask those honest questions in a respectful way and to give, honest answers. Curiosity is, great. That's how we learn things and continue to be inclusive towards each other.
And I think most of the kids, like when they come out here and do it, like whether they're in a wheelchair or not in a wheelchair, they're all out here enjoying it. I don't know that they even see any different.
They're playing tennis, yeah.
Our adaptive sports program moving forward, we've got a lot of cool plans ahead of us. And so towards the end of the summer of 2021, we'll be implementing the first 2 competitive teams here locally in wheelchair basketball. So we'll have a junior team, and then we're gonna have an adult wheelchair basketball team. The Junior Turbo and the Rolling Edge are gonna be a part of our program, which is really cool for us. Every September, we've established the Bowling Green Invitational wheelchair basketball tournament, which is a NWBA sanctioned tournament, the National Wheelchair Basketball Association. We're establishing that event really to create this notion that this is a legitimate opportunity, that if you're someone who is eligible to do adaptive sports competitively, if you have that physical disability, you can really pursue this. You can find opportunities to pursue competitive sport just like anybody else is able to. We're going to establish the Vet City Rollout, which is going to be our USTA wheelchair tennis tournament. That'll be hosted in November of 2021 for the first time. And then we're working in partnership with the County Parks Department to do adaptive water sports. We've worked with them on some different grant projects to get the equipment necessary to facilitate the opportunity for somebody with a physical disability to be out on the water, to enjoy nature. And so we're just really excited to continue growing and implementing these program initiatives as part of our adaptive program.
It's a cool perspective, and it's a new perspective, because you don't really think about whenever you play basketball, and I played my whole life through rec and everything, and then getting in a chair and having that new experience where you can't use your legs, and it's all trunk control and using your upper body to do everything and to turn, the new ways of dribbling. It's just an entirely new experience, and it gives you a whole new perspective on the sport. We welcome just anybody who wants to come in and give it a go, and we welcome all ability levels. And then when we get people who come in, just seeing their face light up and seeing that it's something that they not only can do, but they really find that they enjoy doing, is probably one of the highlights of this job.
Camp Happy Days is our summer program, summer day camp program for individuals aged 6 to 35 that have any kind of physical or intellectual disability. Camp Happy Days is just another way for us to serve individuals with disabilities in our community, provide them that summer camp experience that I think every child, every adult wants to be able to have. And so a couple different things about Camp Happy Days. It does serve children and adults. The adult camp, really the focus for our adult new adventure camp that we are now calling it is to give individuals who are aging out of high school. So for people with disabilities, when you turn 21, that transition can be very difficult when you leave high school, because what high school and what school does is it provides you with the friend group. It provides you with a social structure. It provides you with activities to be a part of. And for many families that have adults with disabilities, when they get to the end of that, what's next is hard. What's next is very hard for those families to figure out. And so our hope with this program and the programs that we provide all year is to make that transition a little easier. If we're able to work on daily living skills, if we're able to get these individuals out in the community where they're recognized and they're accepted, then it only helps that transition even more.
The adult camp is more focused on, like independent living skills and going to a restaurant and making sure that they're able to order their food. A lot of the times when we go on trips with Special Olympics or other things, if they have a worker with them, they let that worker order their food when they're capable of doing that. And so trying to teach those skills to them, I think is really important. We do cooking classes because some of our athletes and some of the individuals that come, they live independently. And so just building upon the skills that they already have is important. And then with the youth camp, we usually have about 50 kids that come every summer, if not 50 to 100, depending on the year. And we do different things in the community. We go out, go to the movies, we go to the water park, just make sure that we're visible in the community and doing the same things that all the other summer camps do. We just do them a little differently. We're blessed with a lot of different organizations that serve people with disabilities, and we all try to work together, which I think is really unique. It's not a competition to see if we can get the athletes to come here. Like we want that athlete or that individual to be able to go to everything that they possibly want. And so that is really nice. You've got Top Crops, the Hive, the Buddy House, you've got Center for Courageous Kids. And even with our summer camp here, Camp Happy Days, it's specifically for children with disabilities. And this year it's called New Adventure Camp, which is a camp for adults with disabilities. Give them the opportunity to get to know them and what services they offer. So yeah, I think anytime that you can partner together and make the community stronger to serve the people in it, you're gonna benefit from it.
We both obviously have a passion, for this population. Our desire at the end of the day is to see them included, to see them accepted, and really have the opportunity to be a part of something, bigger than themselves. Paul's been an athlete in our program for many years, long before I was here, and there's just an infectious personality, with Paul that you just can't help. But to smile when you're around Paul, to cut up and laugh with him. He's just got this genuine joy, for life, and something that all of our athletes, I think, have and are able to influence us with. But I know for a fact that, Paul is able to really impact those he works with as well, outside of just participating with us in Special Olympics. So he works in our Parks Maintenance division and wears many hats with them, but I know for a fact that all the employees that work in Parks Maintenance are impacted for the better because of his presence.
Paul first came to us, we had a little trouble understanding him, but once you listen real close, you can get what he says. You just gotta be patient, you just gotta listen and pay attention, and he gets his words across just fine. He has no trouble, do you?
Nope.
He likes to joke around with the guys a lot.
Yeah.
So they give you a hard time, don't they?
Yeah, I think they got a hard time.
Yep, you do, don't you?
Yeah.
He's been here 6 years and fits right in just like a glove. It's perfect. Just gotta know their abilities and don't hold him back. Paul does just fine holding his own with everybody and doing his job. He knows how to mow, he knows what to do. So you just show him what to do once and he's got it. We have 26 parks and we have 4 guys on our mowing crew. So it's a lot of acreage to mow, but they get it done. They've got a certain schedule that they follow throughout the week as far as which parks get mowed on which days. And yeah, why do you come back, Paul?
I come back late.
You just like us, don't you?
Like them, yeah.
And you know how to mow.
Mow.
And for people with disabilities, that benefit is all the more, because what our industry is able to do is serve as a catalyst for social change. And so with disabilities and Parks and Recreation is we give someone an opportunity to show the people around them the exact opposite of that. We try to focus on somebody's abilities and not their disabilities. And when we do that, that leads to a process of, hey, we're giving somebody every opportunity to be successful, to be included, to be a part of something, and to be accepted, and at the end of the day, enjoy the same benefits that everybody in our community is able to enjoy when we give them the chance.
For more information about Bowling Green Parks and Recreation or any other services within Bowling Green, please call 270-393-3000 or visit bgky.org.